Alec Rose knew struggle intimately. Every day felt like a battle. But one ordinary bus ride changed everything. With barely a coin to spare, she offered to pay a quiet stranger's fare, a small act of pure kindness. Then, he handed her a thick, mysterious envelope. Her heart pounded with disbelief and fear. What was inside? It held not just papers, but promises, a life she never dreamed possible. Alec soon discovered this quiet man was no ordinary passenger. He was a millionaire. Her small kindness had unlocked an unbelievable future, turning her world upside down. This shocking twist will make you question everything you thought you knew about fate, compassion, and the hidden power of a single good deed.
I never thought a simple bus ride could change my life forever. I remember that day like it happened yesterday. My name is Alec Rose, and I was just like any other girl trying to get by. Life hadn't been kind to me. Every day felt like a battle, every coin counted, every meal planned carefully so it lasted longer than it should. I was tired, yes, tired in a way that makes your bones ache and your heart feel heavy, but I was also used to it. That was my life, the normal I had accepted. I woke up that morning before the sun even dared to peek through my window. My mother was already at the stove, humming quietly as she prepared breakfast. I grabbed the small purse I always carried, the one that was nearly empty most days, and kissed my mother on the cheek. "I'll be careful," I whispered, though careful was just a word. I never knew what the day would bring. I walked the same streets I had walked 100 times before, my shoes scuffing the cracked pavement, my backpack light on my shoulders but my mind heavy with worries. The bus stop was crowded, filled with people rushing to work, to school, to somewhere else that seemed more important than me. I kept to myself, as I always did, feeling invisible, like a ghost among the living. And then I noticed him, a man standing quietly, holding onto the railing, looking around as if he didn't belong anywhere. Most people wouldn't even see him, but I noticed. I don't know why. Something about the way he carried himself. It was calm, yet there was an odd tension in his eyes, like he was hiding something. When the bus came, we all shuffled inside. I fumbled with my purse, counting the coins I had for my fare. I didn't have much, and yet, the sight of him standing there, hesitant, made me do something I rarely did. I offered to pay his fare. It was just a small act, a few coins, barely enough for one ride. I didn't think twice, and neither did he. He nodded, thanked me softly, and that was it. I found a seat by the window, trying to shake off the nervous flutter in my chest. The city moved past in a blur, the familiar sights of my neighborhood blending together. I couldn't help but steal glances at the man I had helped. He seemed ordinary, yet there was something unusual about him. His eyes scanned the bus, calm but sharp, as if he was observing everything, taking it all in. I told myself it was nothing, just a man, a stranger. But I felt it deep in my bones, something big was about to happen, though I had no idea what. The bus stopped at another station, people getting off and on, some impatient, some rude. Whispers brushed past me, subtle judgments aimed at me for reasons I didn't understand. Was it because I had helped a stranger? Because I was poor and kind at the same time? I didn't know, and I didn't care enough to ask. I focused on my own heart, pounding with a mix of pride and unease. I was proud I had done something kind, even if it was small. But the feeling didn't last. Moments later, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. I froze. Why would a man carry something like that on a bus? My curiosity surged, mingling with fear. I wanted to ask, but I didn't. Something in his gaze stopped me. There was a seriousness, a weight, that made me hesitate. And yet, I couldn't look away. Every instinct in my body told me that this moment, quiet and ordinary as it seemed, was about to change everything. Our hands brushed for a moment when he handed me the envelope. My fingers trembled. I opened it slowly, expecting perhaps a note, maybe even nothing at all. But what I saw made my breath catch. The envelope was filled with papers, documents, instructions, promises that no one like me was ever meant to see. My mind spun. Was this real? Was I dreaming? It felt impossible, surreal, like the world had tilted on its axis in that single moment. And then he looked at me, his eyes calm, almost kind. He didn't speak loudly, didn't demand anything, but there was an intensity in his gaze that made me understand one thing clearly: he had noticed me. Really noticed me. Not the person I pretended to be, or the person people thought I was. He had seen me, Alec Rose, and he had chosen to act. The bus continued to move, but I couldn't focus on the passing streets. My heart raced, my thoughts scrambled, my chest felt tight. How could one small act, just paying a stranger's fare, lead to this? Could it be real? Could someone so powerful really care about someone like me? And then, in the quiet hum of the bus, I felt it, a spark of hope, fragile but undeniable. I didn't know what would happen next, and that terrified me even more than the envelope itself. Every stop, every movement, every glance from the man kept me on edge. The ordinary ride I had taken thousands of times had transformed into a moment of uncertainty and awe. The kind of moment that makes you question reality, the kind that leaves your entire world poised on the edge of a new beginning. And as I clutched that envelope, my hands shaking, my mind racing, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. Not the streets I walked, not the struggles I faced, not the person I had been yesterday. Something had shifted, and I didn't yet know the shape it would take. All I knew was this: my life was about to change forever, and I was powerless to stop it, even if I wanted to. I remember clutching that envelope the entire way home, my fingers pressing into the paper as if holding it tighter would make the moment feel more real. My heart refused to slow down, every beat a thunderous echo in my chest. I kept looking at the stranger, the man who had changed everything in just a few quiet gestures. He didn't say much, just that look, calm and steady, like he understood more about me than I did about myself. And that frightened me even more than the envelope in my hands. By the time I got off the bus, the city lights were beginning to glow as evening fell. I walked home faster than usual, my mind racing, my legs moving without conscious thought. Every crack in the pavement, every street corner, seemed sharper, more vivid than before. The envelope felt heavy, not because of its contents, but because of the weight of what it represented. Someone had seen my struggles. Someone had decided to act, to reward what I had thought of as a small, unnoticed kindness. When I reached my building, I paused for a moment on the top step, glancing back at the streets I had just walked. The world seemed the same, yet I knew it had changed, at least for me. My mother greeted me at the door, her tired eyes softening when she saw me. "How was your day, Alec?" she asked, her voice warm but weary. I couldn't tell her. How could I? How could I explain that a single act of generosity had opened a door I didn't even know existed? I placed the envelope on the small table in our kitchen and hesitated, my fingers hovering over it. I wanted to open it, but part of me feared what I would find. Could it really be real? Could someone from a world so far removed from mine truly care? And then, a thought struck me: maybe this wasn't about money, or wealth, or power. Maybe it was about something deeper. About being seen. About being valued. About the idea that kindness, no matter how small, could ripple outward in ways I could never imagine. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the man, about his calm presence on the bus, about the way he had handed me the envelope without fanfare or expectation. I imagined all the possibilities, each more unbelievable than the last. Could this be a chance to change my life? Could this stranger, a millionaire, really be the bridge between the struggle I had always known and a future I had only dared to dream about? The next morning, I woke up with the envelope still on the table, untouched. My mind raced as I got ready for the day, wondering what to do first. Part of me wanted to open it immediately, to see what secrets, what opportunities, lay inside. But another part of me wanted to pause, to savor the moment, to let the weight of what had happened sink in. Because this wasn't just a gift, it was a turning point, a fork in the road that could lead me somewhere entirely new. If I was brave enough to take it as I left the apartment and stepped onto the streets again, I noticed things I had never seen before. People rushed past, some tired, some angry, some indifferent. I realized that I had walked these same streets countless times, but today they felt different. Today, I felt different. The world seemed sharper, louder, more immediate. And the envelope in my bag was a constant reminder that my life was no longer just about survival, it was about possibility. By the time I reached school, I had made a decision. I would open the envelope. I needed to know. I needed to understand what had been entrusted to me, what had been given to me simply because I had chosen to help someone, to show kindness when I had little to give. And as I sat down at my desk, my hands shaking slightly, I lifted the flap and peeked inside. Then, one afternoon, it happened. The stranger contacted me again, not in person, not with fanfare, but quietly, with another note slipped under the envelope. This one contained a simple question: are you ready to step into the next stage of your journey? My hands shook as I read it. Step into the next stage. What did that mean? The curiosity was unbearable, and yet so was the fear. Could I trust this unseen benefactor? Could I trust myself to take the leap? I spent that night pacing my small room, thinking about every choice I had ever made. Every small act of kindness I had shown in the past seemed to echo back to me. Every time I had helped someone quietly, without expectation, I had unknowingly prepared for this moment. And yet, doubt gnawed at the edges of my hope. What if I failed? What if I wasn't ready? What if this was a mistake? The next morning, I decided to follow the instructions in the note. It required me to meet someone at a downtown office, a place far outside my usual world. I dressed carefully, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might escape my chest. Every step toward the building felt like walking into a new universe. And then I saw him, the stranger from the bus. He was standing there, calm and composed, exactly as I had remembered him, but somehow even more imposing in person. When he saw me, he nodded slightly, a small acknowledgement that seemed to say everything words could not. He handed me another envelope, this one thicker, heavier, almost as if it contained the weight of 1,000 possibilities. My hands trembled as I took it. I wanted to speak, to ask a million questions, but my voice caught in my throat. And then, without a word, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the city crowd as silently as he had appeared. Inside the envelope were documents, letters, and instructions, more detailed, more urgent than the first. It was a roadmap to a new life, filled with steps that would require courage, patience, and determination. But even as I absorbed the enormity of it, I felt something else, a strange sense of responsibility. This wasn't just about me. It was about the choices I made, the kindness I had shown, and the way those choices rippled out into the world. Over the next few days, I began to act on the instructions. Each step was nerve-wracking, each decision weighted with possibility and fear. I had to trust people I had never met, take risks that seemed impossible, and push beyond every comfort zone I had ever known. But every time I hesitated, I thought back to the bus ride, to the stranger, to the small act that had started it all. And somehow, that memory gave me courage. Somehow, it reminded me that even in a world full of struggle, kindness and bravery could change everything. And then, one afternoon, I faced the biggest challenge yet. A meeting with people far more powerful and influential than I had ever imagined, people whose eyes measured every flaw, every hesitation, every doubt. I felt small, invisible, like I didn't belong in their world. But I remembered the stranger on the bus, the one who had seen me for who I was, and I straightened my back, lifted my chin, and stepped forward. The meeting was intense, questions fired at me like arrows, every word scrutinized, every move observed. My stomach churned, my palms sweated, my mind raced. But I didn't give up. I answered honestly, spoke from my heart, and showed them the courage and integrity that had carried me through years of struggle. And slowly, I noticed a change. Their eyes softened, nods replaced frowns, and by the end, I could feel the weight of approval settling around me like a warm light. Walking out of that building, I felt both exhausted and exhilarated. The fear, the tension, the uncertainty, it was all still there, but now it was mingled with hope. I realized something profound. This journey wasn't just about wealth, or opportunity, or luck. It was about seeing the humanity in someone, even when the world refuses to. It was about recognizing courage, empathy, and integrity where others might overlook it, and as I held the envelope once more, I knew that the life I had once imagined, the life I had worked so hard for in small, quiet ways, was finally within reach. But I also knew that the story wasn't over. Far from it. Every choice, every step, every act of courage I took now would determine the path ahead. And deep down, I understood that the stranger on the bus had given me more than opportunity. He had given me responsibility, a challenge to rise to my full potential, and a lesson I would never forget. That I remember the day like a storm trapped in slow motion. My hands shook as I walked toward the office, the envelope heavy in my bag, my heart pounding like a drum I couldn't silence. Every step felt like a lifetime, every breath sharp and shallow. I had prepared for this moment, followed every instruction, and yet, the fear that I wasn't ready pressed down on me with unbearable weight. Could I actually do this? Could I rise to meet what lay ahead, or would it all crumble before it even began? When I entered the room, my breath caught. The space was grander than anything I had ever imagined, filled with people whose presence radiated power and authority. Their eyes flicked toward me, sharp and calculating, measuring, judging, testing. I wanted to shrink into the floor, to disappear, to be anywhere else but there. And yet, I remembered him, the stranger on the bus, calm, quiet, certain. He had believed in me. That memory was the spark I needed to hold on. Oh, courage, to stand tall even when my knees trembled. The moment came when I had to open the envelope in front of them. My hands were trembling, but I obeyed, unfolding the papers carefully, revealing every detail, every plan, every note that had been entrusted to me. Their eyes followed my movements, some skeptical, some curious, some nearly incredulous. And as I began to speak, to explain my understanding, my intentions, my dreams, something shifted in the room. Their scrutiny softened, their expressions changed, and I felt a flicker of hope, but then came the challenge I hadn't expected. One of them, the most stern of the group, leaned forward, piercing eyes locked on me. "Why should we trust you?" he asked, voice low but sharp. "What makes you think someone like you can handle this?" The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. For a moment, I froze, heart racing, mind spinning. I thought about my life, the struggles, the failures, the moments when the world had ignored me. I thought about the bus, the stranger, the kindness I had shown without expecting anything in return. And I knew, deep down, that I had to answer honestly. "I may not come from wealth or influence," I said, voice trembling but steady, "but I know the value of integrity. I know the weight of responsibility. I know what it means to help others, to act with kindness even when the world isn't watching. That is why I can do this. I may be small, I may be overlooked, but my heart and my choices matter. And I will not fail the trust that has been given to me." The room went quiet. I could feel every eye on me, every judgment hanging in the air. Time stretched, taut and heavy. And then, slowly, a nod. Another. And finally, a small smile from the most stern of them. In that instant, relief and exhilaration crashed over me in waves. The fear, the doubt, the tension, it all erupted into a mix of disbelief, awe, and triumph. I had made it through the most intense moment of my life, not just surviving, but standing strong, proving that courage and integrity could outshine doubt and skepticism. Then came the most astonishing part. One of the senior people, a man whose presence alone commanded respect, handed me a sealed envelope. My hands shook uncontrollably as I took it, feeling the weight of its significance. I opened it slowly, heart racing, and saw what I had never expected, a letter from the stranger himself, the man on the bus. It wasn't just instructions or advice this time, it was acknowledgement. It was praise. It was recognition of who I was, of the choices I had made, and of the potential that had always existed inside me, waiting for someone to see it. The words hit me like lightning. Alec Rose, it read, your kindness, courage, and integrity have not only changed your life, they have reminded the world that small acts can carry immense power. You have proven that character matters more than circumstance, and that empathy can overcome every barrier. What you have achieved is extraordinary, but it is only the beginning. Tears blurred my vision. I felt a mixture of relief, awe, disbelief, and overwhelming gratitude. How could this be real? How could one simple act, paying a stranger's bus fare, have led to this? The stranger had seen me when no one else did. He had recognized something in me that I had only begun to see in myself. And in doing so, he had transformed the trajectory of my entire life. Even as I stood there, trying to comprehend the enormity of it all, I knew one thing: life had changed forever. Every fear, every struggle, every quiet moment of resilience had led me to this climax, the turning point that had reshaped everything I thought I knew about possibility, kindness, and human connection. And yet, a part of me knew the story wasn't over. The real test would come in how I used this opportunity, how I honored the trust that had been placed in me, and how I carried forward the lessons of courage and empathy that had brought me here. I left that building trembling, exhilarated, and terrified all at once. The city outside seemed sharper, louder, more alive than ever. I felt as though I were walking in a dream, one where reality had shifted in ways I could scarcely believe. The stranger's presence lingered in my mind, his calm certainty, his unwavering belief in me. And as I held the envelope close to my chest, I realized, this moment, this climax, wasn't just about reward or recognition. It was about transformation, about understanding that even the smallest choices, an act of kindness, a decision to help someone unseen, could ripple outward and create unimaginable change. And as I walked into the twilight, heart still pounding, I asked myself the question that would stay with me forever: what will I do with this life-altering gift? Could I rise to meet it fully, or would I falter under the weight of expectation and fear? The answer was unknown, but for the first time, I felt ready to face it. Walking away from that office, I felt like the world had shifted beneath my feet. The city around me buzzed with its usual chaos, cars honking, people rushing past, streetlights flickering, but none of it felt ordinary anymore. I had been given a gift, yes, but more than that, I had been shown that kindness, courage, and integrity mattered. That the choices we make, even the smallest ones, can ripple through lives in ways we can hardly imagine. At first, it felt surreal. I kept looking at the envelope in my hands, feeling its weight, both physical and emotional. Every paper, every letter, every instruction represented a doorway into a life I had never dared to dream about. And yet, it wasn't just about opportunity, it was about responsibility. I realized that the stranger on the bus, the millionaire who had quietly noticed me, hadn't just rewarded my act of kindness. He had challenged me to rise to my potential. To step into a world that often ignores people like me, to make my actions count beyond myself. I walked through the streets slowly, letting it all sink in. I thought about my mother, working tirelessly to keep us afloat, her sacrifices often invisible, her strength unrecognized. I thought about the countless people who passed through life unnoticed, judged for their circumstances, overlooked for their potential. And I understood something profoundly human: change isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes, it begins with a single act, a single choice, a moment where you decide to act with empathy when the world expects indifference. Over the next few days, I followed the steps outlined in the envelope. Each small task, each interaction, felt like climbing a steep mountain. Fear, doubt, and uncertainty followed me like shadows, but every time I hesitated, I thought about that bus ride, about handing over a few coins, about the stranger's calm, unwavering belief in me. That memory became my anchor, my proof that courage and kindness are not wasted, they are powerful. Slowly, I began to see the impact of those choices. Doors that had been closed for years began to open. People who had ignored me before now listened. Opportunities one had never imagined became tangible, reachable. And all the while, I carried the lesson that had started it all. Even when life is unfair, even when society turns its back, integrity, empathy, and resilience can create extraordinary change. It wasn't easy. The journey tested me in ways I hadn't anticipated. My confidence wavered, my patience was tried, and there were moments when I wanted to give up. But I didn't. I kept moving forward, guided by the quiet faith of someone who had believed in me before I believed in myself. I realized that my life had never truly been ordinary, not really. Every struggle, every act of perseverance, every quiet sacrifice had prepared me for this moment, this transformation, this awakening to what life could be. And now, I stand here, Alec Rose, forever changed. Not just by wealth or opportunity, but by the realization that one small act of kindness, the decision to help a stranger on a bus, can set in motion events that change everything. That moment was not only about receiving, it was about understanding the power we hold when we act with courage and empathy. I think about the stranger often. I wonder what he sees when he looks at the world, why he noticed me when so many others had overlooked my struggles. And I realized that his gift wasn't just for me, it was a lesson for everyone. That the world can change when someone decides to act with heart, when someone chooses to see what others cannot, when someone believes in humanity even when the world seems cruel. Now, I face the future with a mixture of hope, determination, and reflection. What will I do with this chance? How will I honor the faith that was placed in me? These questions guide me, challenging me to rise, to act, to lead with the same compassion that changed my life. And I wonder, as I hope you will too, in a world filled with struggle, unfairness, and indifference, what small act of kindness could you do today that might transform a life forever? Because my story began with one quiet, seemingly insignificant choice. And if it could change my life, it could change the world.